none of you know your vehicles well enough yet. Some of you know your vehicles better than others know your vehicles. But some of you still don't believe characteristics about your vehicles that exist. And when we tell you about them, it's hard for you to believe us, even though you want to believe us, and you want to accept us at the level of teacher and student and so forth. I'll give you an example. Here'd be a good test about much it believes. If Lynx had brought in the food processor, it wouldn't have worked for the toot. And that's the gospel. It wouldn't have served you. It just wouldn't really be worth the effort. Now this is vehicle playing tricks on you. But since Lynx didn't bring it in, it's really a super device that's worked out to be a real king device. Now, can you accept that as truth? Because it is. It is true. And when we're helping you with a problem, and we're saying that this is the way your vehicle is acting and that, and it's playing tricks on you here and there, you're not going to get one step better control of your vehicle if you don't just simply stop the mechanism of the vehicle that wants to see the lesson we're teaching you from its point of view. And when we say that your vehicle has this problem and this characteristic and so forth, you have got to turn off the vehicle's argument of justification and say, goodness, I know it. I'm recognizing that. I didn't really see how it used to do this to me, but or if you can't bring yourself, if you can't advance that far, now if you say this and don't mean it, it's worthless. But because we know these things when we tell you about them, and but a lot of you still, we can't get the lesson through because you're trying to accept what we're saying. And trying to accept what we're saying doesn't work. It's only when you can accept what we're saying that it works. And you've got, in other words, I can feel just as loud from your vehicle sometimes that the vehicle would, if it could only do it without sounding out of place as a student, if the vehicle could only say, if Lynx only knew all the facts. If Lynx only knew all the facts. Or if you had seen the circumstance as I saw it, instead of as Levodi or Alodi or whoever wrote that note. Do you see what I'm saying? Now, this is very important. This is dependent on how fast we get out of here. Because it's when you know all the tricks of your vehicle, accept the tricks of your vehicle, and work in opposition to those tricks, that you are beginning to have an overview and having control. But a lot of you have accepted certain difficult characteristics of your vehicle, but don't accept the rebellious characteristics of the brain. You accept the difficult characteristics that might have to deal with irritability or impatience or self-destructiveness or sensuality and those obvious things, instead of accepting the characteristics of where the brain wants to rebel and really wants to do what the vehicle is. Still, the vehicle will try to find ways to do what the vehicle wants to do, and tries to mix it with what Lynx would have it do. And if you work hard enough at it, you can find some instruction or something that you were once told that will jive with what you want to do. So that when we bring it to your attention that you shouldn't be doing this, you get, well, I thought the instruction was so-and-so. But it wasn't quite that way. But that's the way your vehicle has adjusted to believing that the instruction was so-and-so because the vehicle wanted to do that. Now, this is, we're not, even this lesson right now, your vehicle can take this lesson as offensive, if you let it. We're talking to next level mind sitting out there, trying to teach you what kind of animals you're wearing. And having you, and the best way you're going to get control of those animals is to know every one of their tricks. And not take up for them. Take up for your vehicle. Or not try to cover for the vehicle's brakes. Now, that vehicle will, when you let it, act in human ways. It will take us as humans. It will take what we say at a human level. And it will get away with anything that it gets away with. Now, the thought occurs to me, I don't know if you've ever thought that, but can you see what kind of individual, have you ever just contemplated what kind of individual you would be if you let your vehicle do what your vehicle would like to do? I mean, indulge itself in all the things that it would like to indulge itself in, and think the way it would think and go its way. Now, if you can like that kind of individual, if you've ever contemplated that, and you can like that, then you don't have your vehicle under control at all. The next level mind that has come in is a very small amount. I can't count the times that I've gone through what I could imagine that this vehicle would do if it were left to its desires. Even its mental desires. Now, you've got to learn the difference. Even its mental desires. Not just physical things or bad habits or vices. I'm not talking about it. Those are simple. Rebellion is the biggest difficulty. Still taking lessons at the human level and still justifying your vehicle's actions. Instead of when Link says so-and-so is so-and-so, and you've got to change the way of looking at that, instead of saying, oh, for heaven's sake, I didn't even realize that that was so, but I'm not going to let my vehicle get away with that again. But instead, we'll help you with a lesson, and there's silence on the other end. Because you're not you don't want to be rude and say, oh, I'm sorry, Link, if you only knew the facts. But that's what you're vibrating. You might as well say it. And I'm not putting you down. Believe it or not, I'm not putting you down. I'm trying to help you get smarter with your vehicles, because there's not one of your vehicles that would not act this way to a degree if you permitted it to. But some of you have vehicles that absolutely were programmed beyond all belief on the area of not wanting to admit that you can do something wrong. And that is an extreme stumbling block when the next level mind is trying to get a control of the vehicle. Do you follow that? Do I need to say that again? Because some of you, your vehicles, the trouble is you don't even know it. You have a vehicle that cannot stand to admit that it's wrong, but you don't even see that you have a vehicle that can't stand to admit that it's wrong. You just see it as I really wish Link knew all the facts. Because you see the facts in a way that the vehicle is justified by its actions. Now, can you drive those things up? You want to add something to that?
What you want to do when Lynx talks to you about something is to realize that Lynx doesn't talk to you without getting as many of the facts as we can. In other words, we usually don't take one person's word for something. And therefore, it isn't. In other words, we not only we receive instructions that you're in trouble and need some help. Now, one thing that disturbs me, I know I'm getting off track, one thing that disturbs me is that some of you who should be asking for help in certain ways are not asking
Never
for
ask
help.
for help.
You never ask for help.
In those ways.
It's as though you assume that everything you're doing is okay,
That's right.
and you're not.
Let me just repeat that, because some of the ones who have the biggest problem with accepting lessons and desiring correction, or needing to desire correction, in ways never ask for help. And then we have to try to impose it upon him. Now I want to go back to what he said before that. When he said, because you can take that in a very human way, and I can hear some of your vehicles taking it in a human way. When he said that we don't take somebody's word for it and we try to get all the information, that's true. That's very true. But even if we got all the information, and if what we gave you was slightly off the track, what we gave you was exactly what you needed to accept in order to be ready for the next step. And everything becomes exposed. If we falsely accuse you and you believe what we say, I'm talking in theory, because the last thing we try to do, would ever do, is falsely accuse you of something that your vehicle is doing. You follow that? The last thing we would do is falsely accuse you of what is happening. And since that, and we go to great lengths to try to be very, very careful, not to say this is happening with you, or you are doing this, or so-and-so is happening. We go to more lengths than you can imagine. Now, even if, theoretically, we are off the track in what we're telling you, we trust the track that we're on, and know that if you accepted what we were telling you as if it were 100% gospel, even if it wasn't, that the percentage that was not gospel would quickly be exposed, and we would be back on the track. And that what you need to accept is what we're giving you. The last thing you need is to justify it. Now, that doesn't, you can carry that to an extreme if you want to. You can make fools of us in that way. If we say, I believe the garage door is open, and someone just saw the garage door, which closed right after I saw it, to say, oh, well, if the garage door is open, you say it's open, it's open. Now, that's foolish. That's ridiculous. You see what we're saying? And we would want you to say, I just saw the garage door closed. Of course, it may have been that I'm confused, and I think I saw it after you saw it. Because that would be stating what you think is happening, but also you have made up your mind that you saw it right. You're still leaving the door open for what the facts may be. But some of you, your vehicles are so convinced that it knows the facts on things and what happened in circumstances, that a lesson is impossible. Because, and when we are trying to teach you a lesson, and your vehicles are stubborn because they are convinced, out of logic, or out of memory, or out of thinking that this, well, I thought that was procedure to do so and so. When we have to compete with that, we cannot help you without seeming to be at an opposition level. And when we're at the opposition level, all that comes as a result of our session with you is vehicular conflict, and your vehicle ends up hurt. And we end up hurt for hurting your vehicle. Because the vehicle was in the way, we couldn't get through to you. So anytime the vehicle's in the way, the vehicle gets hurt. Can you follow that? I see you nodding your head, but I wish you could follow that. Because I'm sorry you don't follow that. You follow that a little bit. But we want you to think on that and recognize that you don't follow that. To the degree that you have got to learn to be capable of following it. And only by listening to these tapes and trying to force it into your brain will you be able to increase the degree that you're comprehending what we're saying. because I know that most of you are comprehending some of what we're saying and recognize it as fact. But I know that others of you, when it's lesson time, you can take lessons very well. When it's application to experience time, it's a different matter. I mean, let's say when it's meeting time. When it's meeting time and we're delivering lessons like this, it's much easier to accept. But when your vehicle is on its soapbox, and we're trying to help you get the vehicle off the soapbox and work something out with you, then it's difficult to refer back to that meeting when that was the topic and recognize, I see at this moment happening in reality what they were talking to me about just some time ago. Now I'm going to say again, because I want it to appear on the tape again, some of your vehicles cannot stand to admit that it's ever in the wrong. And your next level minds are going to have to break through and get used to it. Get used to your next level mind saying to the vehicle, I can't trust you. You're wrong more than you're right. I can't trust your judgment. I can't trust your memory of procedures. And if Lincoln tells me directly or through procedure helpers or SAT3 that something is such and such a way, I am going to buy it. This is what you're telling your vehicle. If you can't tell it and believe it to the core, if you still want to hide because you don't want the conflict, then you are not going to break down that vehicle. We've seen this happen a few times lately, and we feel like it really needs some special attention. It's probably, at the moment, the biggest stumbling block we have. Now, another lesson altogether. In the move, we really lost some control of how we thought you had learned to proceed in moves. And where we mainly lost control was of everybody knowing what was happening. It's just like I can't imagine that all of you haven't observed I'm using this as an example, I can't imagine that all of you haven't observed the craft at Elm Ridge enough when we went there and to forget that when we're leaving of certain things that belonged to the craft and did not belong to us. Even if it's nothing but a flower pot. I know that if I had come to that craft before we were moving in things and saw 3 clay pots sitting on the back stoop, I would know those clay pots are ours. I've never seen them before. Link's never brought them in. They aren't ours. But I'm just using this as one example because there were quite a few. Because someone was preparing to bring those clay pots over here. Now, where the chimneys are that belonged on the light fixture in the upper room, I don't know, but I know there were chimneys on that light fixture when we went in that craft, but it was missing 1 or 2 chimneys. But I'm just using these as examples. Now, and when we got over here, and T and I would ask, what about this and what about that, ask that 3, we could never find anybody who knew the answer. It was like the only one who knew the answer was the individual involved. And that's the way humans work. We have tried to teach you all to work where you are observing everything that's going on. And anything that can't be visually observed by someone else that you're involved in with a check partner, then you are responsible for informing them that you have done this and you have done that and you have done the other, so that when headquarters calls, you know exactly what transpired. Down to the tiniest thing. We couldn't count the times in the last 2 or 3 days that we said, what about this and what about that? And the people we were on the telephone with said, well, I wasn't involved in that. I don't know. And that throws us off. Because that means during the move, the crew broke up and became a bunch of little crews. But nobody signed up, I'm the crew to do this, I'm the crew to do that. We had to act like humans and say, anybody know who did so-and-so? Anybody know what happened? That's the way humans do things. Do you all understand this? All of you?
Could be wrong. When I went into the closet, in West Chamber 2 of the old Dawes craft, and it was in the female in-craft closet. I found a box with the newspaper wrapped clothes, and they looked like these...
Well, you can put that on the note, because I don't really care to know it's me. I'm just using that as an example. Did that box come over here?
Yeah, I didn't...
Well, I think we've looked all through all the closets. There are no boxes over there now. Did anybody examine all the closets carefully before we left the craft?
There was a bag with 3 gloves in it that we left over there the other day. When you were over there.
Where was it left? Huh?
I think it was in that back closet where the water was.
Well, how am I going to know that? How is the landlady going to know that? Because if they are the chimneys that belonged on that light fixture, then they should be with that light fixture, or at least in that room lined up on the wall, so that they know that they go with that. But to have somebody, a couple of people, or 3 people know that there's a bag somewhere in such and such closet, when the light fixture's been put back up, but the chimneys aren't fitted. That's not the way. In other words, we're talking that we've given this lesson to you before. And that is that many of you assume that others are taking responsibilities for things, and you don't have to be responsible for observing what happens. Now, we feel like it isn't SAT 3 that any member of this craft, as they left that craft over there and saw that fixture wasn't there, or chimneys weren't on it, that it should have registered, I think when we came in this craft, there was a fixture there, and it had some old mismatched chimneys on it. And where are they? Because we shouldn't leave without putting them up. But no one, not a single person, brought that up. Where are the chimneys for that fixture? Lynx brought it up. Now, a couple of people might have known where they were in some bags tucked away in the closet. You see, that's not being responsible. It's like our security. You aren't responsible, and 35 of you aren't equally responsible to act like, to play like, I'm that neighbor over there, I'm that neighbor over there, I'm that neighbor over there, and I'm that neighbor over there, and I want to think about everything I do or I see happening, would it look strange to them? In other words, I can't just say, well, Lynx has turned security over to this crew or that crew, and so I'll just go and do what they tell me. And you see what I'm saying? That's not functioning as a member of the next level. You are to follow dispatch and take such and such a car and do so and so, but that doesn't mean that if Star Rhodey and Air Rhodey are assigned to dispatch such and such a car, and that they shouldn't be keen, so that if something happened that might appear to be suspicious or strange, that they wouldn't immediately report it for our examination. But we aren't even thinking in terms of that. Now, the problem is, can you think in terms of security without becoming paranoid? That's what you've got to learn to do. Think in terms of security without looking in a fearful way when you're outside the craft or whatever it is. And but we want every single one of you to know that you are assigned to security. You're assigned to knowing where everything is, are the kind of things that we've mentioned. Observing everything. And not just leave it to maintenance, or leave it to the lab, or leave it to SAT 3. Because that means if SAT 3 falls down on the job, then you're of no assistance to them, if it happens to be SAT 3's task. That you haven't even observed what was going on. Holiday?
Another thing, watch your lingo. Like this morning we got a report that someone was out in the garage talking very loudly saying, well, what is the procedure? And they were talking so loud, if I understood it correctly, that they could hear them on the inside. Is that correct? And that isn't the kind of talk that humans talk about, especially not out in the garage. You know, they might talk about it at their work or something like that. So watch your voice when you're outside talking. Don't talk so loud that you would make let the neighbor hear you. I can't imagine anybody talking that loud to begin with. You don't talk that loud in your craft, at least I don't think you do. So watch your vehicle. What you want to do, this is getting back to what we were talking about at the very beginning. Examine your vehicle and do not be satisfied with its actions. Examine what you get yourself into, like in little habits. Well, I've got to go at such and such a time and brush my teeth and wash my face, and then if you go and someone happens to be in the BC, then it causes a reaction in you. Then there's something wrong there. Or if somebody stays a little bit longer in the BC and you want to get in there and you get your vibrations changed because of that. You have to have your bed a certain way. You have to have everything a certain way. The right thing always, otherwise your vibrations change.
Now, some of you this applies to, and you don't even know it.
That's what I'm saying. You want to examine yourself because just like saying that my vehicle has to have 2.5 volts of zero at the moment. That is plain garbage. That's true. Your vehicle is talking. But I couldn't guarantee you that every day I would eat the same amount of cereal. If I do, then there's a habit setting. And a habit isn't what we're trying to get into.
Does that mean that each day you carefully exert no more energy or no less physical energy? There's no change in stress nor physical expenditure than there was the previous day? Because that's what it would mean. Even if it was exactly and precisely the same, there would still be some modification from day to day in your consumption of it. Someday you're going to rest better and not need to consume quite as much. I mean, the whole thing, but you can't lock in on things. And a lot of you lock in. You absolutely have accepted your little vehicle song and dance on what it needs.
And you zero in on...
And it always does this. My vehicle always does this. If I eat so-and-so, this is going to happen. I get gas pains. I always get gas pains.
And I can guarantee you it will happen because you are programming your vehicle to do exactly that. Now, I can honestly say that before this vehicle and the mind in the vehicle sits down to consume, I question whether or not I need very much of it. Now, and I don't go in with the idea in mind that I'm going to consume all of it that's on my plate. And that, even if it's good.
But you do go in with the idea of consuming adequate to sustain you.
Exactly what I want. And this is what you want to train your vehicle to do. Do I really need all this? Now, it doesn't mean we're trying to get you to cut back, so don't misinterpret
that would be messing up what we're trying to say.
If you go into an experiment and you think, well, the only thing that will satisfy me is a big plate of spaghetti and 4 meatballs,
because that's what I always eat,
salad, then you are wrong. Because suppose you didn't burn up that many calories, but if you go in with that in mind, I can guarantee you that's exactly what you will consume. Now, if you will do that with food, you will do the same thing. Suppose we change your toothpaste, and I can only use a certain kind of toothpaste.
Who's talking? Next
I
time,
can't
I'm
ever
get toothpaste.
I can't ever use this kind of shampoo. I always have to use this. Well, what happened when you were in the world 10 years ago, or close to 10 years ago, I can understand it. But you aren't anything like that. At least I hope you're not. So therefore, why listen to that kind of garbage unless you have carried it through all along the earth?
Before you get far from what you were saying about also, at times we will force ourselves to consume when our vehicles don't seem to want anything to consume, and we know that we're not going to have the stamina that we need during the task that day will demand if we do not consume at those times. In other words, you've got to be prepared for whatever game your vehicle is playing. If your game is playing if your vehicle is playing the game of habitually consuming X amount, you've got to be wise to that game and not let it do it. If your vehicle is playing the game of I'm not really hungry, I don't want to consume anything, you can't let it get away with that either. You're thinking of it just like the gauge on the automobile and the miles that you have to travel.
Sometimes you may need more. But I can honestly feel like you need the same thing every day. Now, the reason we're talking to you about this is because we want you to bring in that part of your next level mind to consciously work on it with your vehicle. Now, let's say that you have an out-of-crack tap, and every day you buy a cold drink. And you write a note saying, I bought a Coke today because thirsty. What's wrong with water? What's wrong with taking juice? Why get in the habit of having a Coke every day?
If you think 5 days in a row, I'm thirsty and I need Coke, then pretty soon you're going to be thirsty every day, thirsty or not.
That's right.
You're programmed to be thirsty.
You're developing a habit. And now we're not saying that you can't have it, but I would question myself if I were you, because if I had it more than 2 days in a row, I would say, now wait a minute, vehicle, you're getting to where you're getting in the habit of having a Coke. So bring yourself some juice to work. Don't you have the procedure to do that? Hydrate more water. Nothing wrong with that if you're thirsty.
That's a good little test, right? Because the vehicle probably doesn't like the water that much.
But a human, the first thing they do is go and get a Coke. Now, to buy a Coke and then drink part of it, throw it away, that doesn't mean anything. You're not accomplishing anything. Why waste it once you have it? You see what I'm saying? These are all little habits of the vehicle. And what you want to learn is to take the responsibility to break your vehicle of these habits. Only you can do it. Only you know what your habits are. Remember, way back in campgrounds, we said, if you're in the habit of going one way all the time, break it. Go another way. Another route. Don't ever continue to do the same thing because the vehicle can get into a habit. Nothing frustrates me more than to hear somebody say, well, we usually do this. Or we usually have to do, I have to have my bunk this way or that way or some usual thing, because that is not the mind talking. It is the vehicle talking. And we could care less what the vehicle has to say. Just turn on.
Do you know that your consumption of, this is just little side information that may have never even occurred to some of you, that thirst, the genuine thirst of the vehicle alters considerably day to day depending upon the humidity. You know that on humid days, thirst is a very rare thing to experience. On very dry days, you're more thirsty. that the saline or the salt content of what you have consumed that day will also dictate something of your thirst. And so to think that I'm thirsty, I'll tell you how a lot of your vehicles get thirsty. It's when you see others heading for the Coke machine. That's thirsty. And it isn't thirsty at all. It's just simply seeing someone do something and it thinks, oh, that might taste good. I'm thirsty.
What you're trying to do is break habits, no matter what they are, and getting in control of your getting in control of the vehicle by your next level move, and making sure that what your vehicle is doing is not less than next level conduct. And we'd really like for you to work on it. Now, when you go, when this meeting is over, check yourself and see what you do before you, because chances are you'll start getting ready to go down. And check your reaction on what happened. I mean, be conscious of your reaction. Like if you go to get your PJs and you want to change and you can't find a place to change, and you usually do this at this time, and you usually are able to go in and brush your teeth, or you usually, why don't they hurry up, and then before you know it, you find your vibrations have changed. And when that happens, we know you have to go down by a certain time. We understand that. But if the BC is occupied, you cannot get in there, then do something else. Even if you go and make turn your bed down, or take your shoes and socks off and put your slippers on, or whatever it is, but change the habit. Whatever it is, prevent yourself from having your vibrations change.
Some of you don't know don't work against others. Use Testody as a guinea pig here. Because Testody's vehicle, if you let it do exactly what it would like to do, it would slowly get up earlier and earlier and earlier in the morning, and then have a horrible time fighting off sleep in the evening. Because the vehicle, probably way back genetically, is programmed to early rise and be sleepy in the evening. And yet, not so that Testody might even be able to recognize that as a characteristic of the vehicle. Now, another characteristic of some vehicles that has occurred a lot during the move that wasn't happening as badly before the move is uncontrolled, all I know to call it is aggressiveness. Moving abruptly, getting your nose where it doesn't belong. Even though you think that it's just interest, lots of times there's an appropriate curiosity and there's an inappropriate curiosity. There's a way to be helpful as a check partner, and there's a way to interfere with someone. There's a way to speak in a way that it can be heard, and there's a way for it to be loud and abrasive. And during the move, and here this is difficult for us to teach this lesson, particularly me, because I'm playing a teacher role with you, and when I come in the craft, many times I speak in a voice that would be too loud if I were a crew member of this craft. Most of the time, my voice would be too loud. And yet I leave here and expect you to speak in a quiet tone of voice. And yet while I'm here as your teacher, I'm speaking in a tone of voice that I'm sure that all of those that might be, or that should be hearing what I'm saying, I speak in a tone of voice that they can hear it. But you all aren't playing a role of everybody within earshot of hearing what you're saying because of what you're teaching them in that way. But your voice levels, many times, are still that way. Let me use Sam Modi as the guinea pig in this little aggressiveness thing. He sat down there the other day to play on the little musical toy. And Sam Modi goes and tinkers with it while he's playing with it. Now, that shows no restraint. That's completely inappropriate to do it when anybody's like not just he. When someone sits down there to that toy, you have no business going like any more than you would on any other toy of going and sliding the bars or interfering with. That's just like if somebody sits around the typewriter and you push the carriage return while they're typing. It's exactly the same thing. And some of your noses are just exactly like pushing the carriage return when it isn't appropriate. Like if T and I will go into a room and to speak to someone privately, there are always half a dozen noses that are the most likely ones to appear around the corner and then quickly disappear. As if you just, there's something, this is inappropriate curiosity. When we say be abreast of things, that's inappropriate being abreast of. It's the wrong application of. In other words, you should be able to sense that. Now, if you were going into that room because you were, let's say Lynx was in the quiet room talking to somebody, and you were going in there to sit down, and you saw Lynx talking to someone, we can always tell that vibration. That you go in there and see Lynx talking to someone and realize it's a private conversation, then you turn to go the other way. But we also, more frequently than you can count, see people come up, look around the corner, because they want to see what's going on. And then they feel like, this isn't where I'm supposed to be. And so then they go on that way. Now to us, that's very childish to still be acting that way. If we wanted you in there, we would say, and don't go get everybody and bring them in the quiet room. Or go get this group or that group. Go get the last group or go get the so-and-so. Otherwise, your curiosity is inappropriate at those times. Now, we're hitting you with several little lessons that have hit us pretty strongly in the last few days. And I must admit that some of these things, we're very disappointed, as you should be, that they are still occurring. Now, don't be disappointed of someone else doing it. That's not your place. That's our place. You are out of place if you are not the guilty party and you're disappointed of others still doing this. You got that? Mm-hmm. Only do we be disappointed as a participant in these things that we're talking about.
Actually, the overall move was a good move.
Yes, it was.
In other words, these are just a few things that did not go right. But in general, the move was very good, and you worked quickly. You worked very hard to get your craft in shape, everyone. I don't know of anybody that I could see who lost their cool and disturbed the vibration.
I did see some people doing some poor priorities, doing things that didn't need to be done, but there were other things that really needed to be done before the kind of thing you were doing. You know what I'm saying? Like major things that needed to be done. It would be like if bunks needed to go up and you were going and sorting out the magazines. I saw that kind of thing. I'm serious. People doing things out of place. Now, Lagodi said was so tired, and he was even realizing he was tired. And he had a little accident with M-Car. And we said, Lagodi, it would have never happened had you not permitted yourself to get that tired. Why were you driving? And Lagodi said, well, I said to Mercodi, would you like to drive? And Mercodi said, no. Now, Mercodi, first of all, should have been more sensitive to why is he asking me if I'd like to drive? Or he should have said to the girl, why are you asking me? Are you suggesting that
are you tired?
Yes, are you thinking that I'm criticizing your driving and therefore would like sarcastically saying, would you like to drive? Or are you tired? Now, Lagodi should have said, Mercodi, if you don't mind, or someone else in this vehicle, I don't trust myself at this point. I'm too tired. Do you feel like you've got a little better control at the moment than I do? Now, this is the right kind of honesty because it's protecting yourself. It's protecting the tool that you're responsible for. Do you follow that? And little things like that. Or I saw Anioti playing a game when there were thousands of things that needed to be done. Much, much higher priority. But in Aniotio's vehicle's mind, well, I was just for a minute. I was just going to sit out just for a minute to rest. And yet there were others who hadn't sat down for minutes. Because others probably overdid on not sitting down while others were going to the other extreme. Well, were you all ready for that?
The overall mood, I feel like it was very good, and it was less stressful. The security thing kind of disturbed us a little bit, but fortunately we were able to correct it before it got to say, at least we hope, so let the neighbors see. But when you go outside, you remember, if you like this craft, then protect it. Don't stand outside and
we like it, so if you don't like it, protect it anyhow.
Just be aware when you're outside that you can't start calling the lingo we use.
Let's take the cars and loading in Elmridge, for example, for a moment. The cars and people loading to go to tasks and so forth. And we, over a period of months, you hit us with about 16 different problems relating to vehicles and where they're parked and going to task and how vital signs can be performed and which cars are in the carport and all of that. And before you know it, we've given procedures that we are at a point where you should be taking more responsibility to see that they're ending up in a way we would not have them end up. And in other words, the way they're being carried out. When we realize that O and F, for the most part, were staying in their spot in the carport at Elmridge, while car after car drove up, not even in the carport, not protected by anything, and emptied people, car after car. And you did it, and you got used to it. I mean, so used to it that it never even occurred to you. You just thought, well, this lady over here, she's an angel, she never looked at it. And that lady back there, she's got used to it too, so you had to subconsciously have thought that way, or you wouldn't have gone on keeping O and F right there as every car drove up and emptied out, no matter what number of people it had in it. So, since we are not here, nor are we assigned, we have assigned you to the security of this craft. We help you with things as you bring them to our attention, and we help you with things many times that you don't bring to our attention, because you're not taking the responsibility we would have you take. But if we want all of you thinking in terms of, if I was the neighbor, would this look awkward? Would this be weird? Would this be strange? And we want to know about it, because we want to figure out the scheme, whatever it is, that would be the most unnoticed scheme of our arrivals and departures, of our loading and unloading. We don't want you just saying, well, we have a procedure to do it this way, so this is the way we do it. That's not going all the way security-minded. Security-minded is thinking in terms of, is the procedure obsolete? Does Links need to be informed of this or that? Because maybe we need to change these procedures because it isn't working. It's causing some problems. Like, just because we have a garage that's closed in, it doesn't mean that you could go out there at 5 o'clock and start doing things and have the lights on in the garage without looking at a little computer. 5 a.m. So, do you understand what we're saying? So if you've got vital signs to perform on a car, then you've got to figure out, when can I do it? according to what would be security-minded? When can I do it? I'm certainly not going to go out and do something and have the light on in the garage during dark at a time that a carload comes out to get in the car. And there we are, spotlighted. Do you see what we're saying? It's things like that Rody will assume that Study has received an instruction on it, and no Rody has been a check partner. You see what I'm saying? You all are not. You're assuming that this is all the way it's happening the way it's supposed to happen, instead of looking at it from, is this the way that is supposed to happen? Is there something happening here that possibly Links would like to be informed of, or that maybe we should alter in order to improve it? Believe it or not, you will see things here. Now, I guarantee you that if T and Doe were here a half a dozen days during your arrivals and departures, we would know exactly where our vulnerability was and where it wasn't. And we wouldn't have to exert any extra effort. It happens to us automatically because we carry that responsibility. You see, and we want you carrying that same responsibility.
What you've got to realize is that you are programming your computer right now on security. Because if you go on a task like this, you're going to have to know security. You might not have an older member with you.
Right.
And we're trying to instill in your mind security. And now, we can talk until doomsday, if it ever occurs, and about security. But unless you try to do something about it, you will not grasp any of it. We've been talking over 9 years about security. And you still aren't completely security-minded.
No, some of you feel like others take.
In other words, you're too weak in that way, too naive. In other words, what you want to do is develop a security-minded system in your mind, because you don't want, there are certain things that you have to have. You know, there are about 5 things that we keep going over and over with. I don't want to name them, but I'm sure you know what it is. Maybe not even 5. But you have to know those things very strongly. You have to know you are learning them from this task. Your mind is storing this experience in your computer.
There are tasks unique to where you are an alien, and you are an alien in this circumstance.
And therefore, you need to grasp the knowledge from this experience. And you don't want to go back to the next level, have a task come up like this, and they see that you don't have all of the experience that you need. You might have 3 of the 5 things, and therefore you wouldn't be capable of doing the task until you were able to do all of those things. So this is why we keep talking about these things, in order for you to know these things. And it won't happen through osmosis or repetition. You have to honestly bring it in to your next level mind. You have to absorb it and put it and know it. It's like a computer. Unless you push the right button, at least I think this is the case, unless you push the right button, it will not absorb the program or retain the program, right? You have to do the right thing. Now, we can talk about security, and it goes in one ear and out the other. With some of you, oh, well, step 3 will take care of it. None of us will walk out, all get out at the same time and come in and wonder, you know, that doesn't seem right. There's something wrong here. You see what I'm saying?
You ought to even carry this to the point that if we have taught you something about security and Links tells you to do so-and-so and it seems to be contrary to what we have in general tried to teach you about security, you ought to say, you want us to do that? You see what I'm saying? Because then you're being responsible at that moment. I mean, let's say that because of circumstances for a moment, we are naive or innocent of what is going on. And we say, would you do this? And it should register to you, I'm not sure that they really want me to do this. Would you, do you want me to do this? And then it gives us a chance to review. And we say, yes, we do. Or, no, you're right, we don't. Because we might have our minds on a half a dozen things. In other words, you're taking responsibility that way. Can you all follow that?
Yes.
Now, Dodie, I feel like you're, in a sense, you're babying yourself a little bit by standing whenever you get, your eyelids want to get heavy. And I didn't really indicate for you to stand. I indicated for you to get your eyelids higher. Like Herodian, Testodian, Checodian, Durodian, Synodian. I could name 3 or 4 others of you that you ought to accept that your vehicles fight heavy eyelids. And you ought to learn what it is to recognize my eyelids are trying to get heavy, and I'm going to force them to open. Even if when Lynx looks at me, I look silly because I've got my eyes so wide open. If it takes that, I'm going to have them wide open. But some of you, your pupils leave us. Your pupils get halfway covered up, and we look at you, and it's almost, I'm not sleepy. Now this is back to the first thing we brought up, of not really being aware of some of the areas that your vehicle really cons you. Now, accept those things. If we've ever brought them to your attention, if they've ever been brought to your attention, then there's something you're going to have to work on. Now, the reason I said that study is babying himself, because he needs to learn what it takes when he's sitting down in a chair, recognizing that those eyelids are getting so heavy that if he doesn't watch it, the next thing he knows, somebody's going to be nudging him, saying, "Study, about to sleep." You see what we're saying? Or if you're sitting in a meeting and your eyelids are beginning to get down, you need to be aware of it. So that when we look at you the next time, your eyelids are more than normal open, because you're proving to your vehicle, I'll be darned if I'm going to let heavy eyelids come in here.
Thing of it is, if you're concentrating with your mind on what we're saying, you will not get sleepy.
But your vehicle can have you thinking you're concentrating.
That's right.
And that you're not that sleepy.
It isn't really concentrating, because when you're fighting off sleep, you can't hear what we're saying.
No, you think you're hearing.
There's no way.
That's right. You're hearing like the guy who has the megaphone, or the long, the cans with the string. That's about the way you're hearing, and you might as well say, "What's that? I didn't hear that." But you're not even aware of it, because I can't count the times that I've looked at heavy eyelids and the vehicles look like, me?
Well, the funny part is that it's obvious that when you're fighting off sleep that you're not listening.
That's right.
Because we can see.
That's right. Because you let the vehicle get in the condition of poor listening.
And this is, now, you all...
You're missing out.
You all
to a degree.
You all have not... we do not have more sleep than you do. Our days are just as long as yours. In fact, we will go back and probably read all the notes that are in there and stay up later than what you all stay up.
And then talk after the night about the things that were in the notes.
In other words, we don't stay in bed until noon, resting, going down at 11 o'clock and staying until noon, and getting a lot of rest and talking about sleep.
Now, we don't abuse our vehicles. We try to make ourselves go down and get X amount of rest, but what I'm saying is, if we recognize that neither one of us are sleeping at 1 a.m., we might go over what has happened from our month for a while. But we also we try to make it very brief in case the other one might be able to rest in a moment.
But the point I'm getting at is we know that the vehicle can get tired.
That's right.
We fight off being tired. As soon as we leave here, we begin to relax. We try to relax. But even then, our day is not over. Now, the point I'm trying to get is that we went through a no-sleep time. This vehicle, fall off sleep, had a very difficult time. I had an awful lot to get this vehicle into control with sleep, and I know what it is. And I don't have any trouble with it now, because I taught it the lesson when it was going through it. And if you're having trouble now, it's because you didn't do your homework.
That's right. From fighting off sleep. That's right.
Now,
the lesson of fighting off sleep should have really been learned when we were getting up in the middle of the night.
Right.
That was when we had the lesson on fighting off heavy iodine.
Now, we usually wake up about 4:12 or 3:25 or something like that, just ready to get up, start our day. But we don't do it.
Don't let ourselves.
We try to relax our vehicle and rest it. And I think I think it would help you to try to relax or go through some kind of meditation so you won't get up so early, because your vehicle needs rest. Your brain needs rest.
Even when it doesn't feel like it, it'll need it at another time.
Right.
And then you need to try to it's just like taking fuel when you may not even feel hungry, but you're thinking, I'm going to have so much work to do. You know, when we were traveling, as you were, around the country, and having to get X number of miles and all the kind of frantic moving and traveling we were doing, we pushed our vehicles just to their limit, or many times almost beyond their limit. And then the recovery period, we would have to fight off a difficult recovery period. In other words, if we needed to get to some place, we didn't rest until we got there. And then when we got there, we had to work against the fact that the vehicle was having to recover so from having done that. Now, the reason I'm bringing that up is now we have learned that our vehicles might have a tendency to push when push is not necessary. And so we need to know how to conserve when conserve is appropriate. And that, I'm talking about like Lagodi and the getting too tired. Because others of you want to get things done, and you want to get them done, and the next thing you know, the next day, your brain isn't even functioning, or your vehicle isn't even functioning, and you're wondering why. And it's because you didn't pace yourself the day before, or maybe you don't even need to pace yourself, but you need to recognize the signals when your vehicle is saying, you're going to have to slow down a little bit at this point, or I'm going to have a hard time recovering. Now, don't confuse that with vehicles that like to be lazy. That's two different lessons altogether. That's the lesson for vehicles that like to prove that they're anything but lazy. You see what I'm saying? The vehicles that like to go to an extreme in physical production or physical exertion of energy, or even mental exertion to the extreme. Well, we've had a bunch of lessons.
Most important thing, though, is listen to the tape again and really believe that this lesson is important. But I don't want you all to
potent for the moment.
Oh,
potent. I'll tell you, you could have a nice enough craft for us to like to stay here a day past our possible exit. Do you follow that? You couldn't have a nice enough craft, or nice enough food, or nice enough clothes, or nice enough cars, or nice enough movies. I can't think of anything that could be nice enough that would make us want to stay here one day or 1 hour past the possible exit. So that's the reason we say to you, don't drag your feet in these areas. We're pointing out some areas that we're guilty of dragging feet. Okay?
We don't care what happens on Dallas next week.
We're not going to say it.
I mean, there isn't anything.
Right.
Everett?
Is it appropriate to ask a question?
Well, we might have a few minutes for question, if it doesn't require a long answer.
I was just wondering what was happening to me during the move. I was experiencing, after the move got in the way, I felt exhausted, like I didn't, but I hadn't been participating physically to any extent where I should have been exhausted. I couldn't figure out what was going on. I even felt like it affected me by getting my vibrations down to some extent.
Well, just because you're tired doesn't mean you have to give in to the tiredness. Now, there are times when we feel extremely tired, like when we're out on a task or something, and we told you, like, let's use an example of walking through a mall, and all of a sudden our energy will drain from us. And if there's a place to sit down, we will sit down and rest for a few minutes, and then get back up again. But you have to do whatever it takes to get your vehicle going. You don't know what it takes for me to keep my vehicle going. The pressure points on my vehicle are so sore, just to keep the energy from leaking out, as they call it. And if you get out of energy, deep breathing will bring oxygen into your brain and stimulate your vehicles. And in other words, you ought to know what makes your vehicle run. But what you don't do is give into it, unless it's time to give into it. You ought to take some deep breathing.
Well, deep breathing even makes some sleepy.
It's oxygen to your brain.
Breathing makes some sleepy, but
in general, it
will get more oxygen and get you awake.
Get you stimulated, and but what you haven't done is learn what is wrong with your vehicle when it's not functioning right.
To recognize the symptoms.
You accept the fact that something is, but it's tired. Well, so what if it's tired? It gets sleepy. So what if it gets sleepy? It gets hungry. So what if it gets hungry? You know, it's no big deal.
That's right. It's simply a tool that you shouldn't be willing to give into.
Your shirt gets dirty, you take it off and wash it.
That's right.
Why do you take it off and wash it? Because it's dirty. All right, your vehicle gets tired, but you can't take it off because it's tired. But you have to get by. You can't get into it. You see what I'm saying? Nothing happened because you were tired. It was just something that your mind needed to learn how to do to make the vehicle function during that particular circumstance. You all have better nutrition than any human on this globe, I believe, as far as being balanced and the vitamin supplements. It may not be the most elaborate consuming, but it's exactly what you need to keep your vehicle going. So if you experience tiredness, if you experience your brain being in a cloud, so what? Don't accept it. Figure out what it takes to get that brain to work properly and to get the vehicle from being tired without having to go back to bed.
And be keen enough with your next level mind to recognize when your brain is slow or you're experiencing these symptoms. Because a lot of you don't know the symptoms exist till we bring them to your attention.
It's time that you take the responsibility of running your vehicle. Just like you would if you were driving a car out there. If the car is going slow, it's going slow because you're driving slow. Now, suppose the car says to you, I'm tired and I don't want to go fast. But yet you have to go fast. So you say you're going fast whether you like it or not. I'm going to push on the accelerator, and I don't want to hear anything else from you. You're talking to that car out there. That is, if the car was able to communicate in that way. This is how you must look at your vehicle. There's not a thing wrong with you. Only if you allow that weakness to come in will you be convinced that there's something wrong with it. If you feel like it's overpowering you, like the feeling of tiredness is overpowering you, then run it off. Get out of here feeling, I'm not going to accept your tiredness. And I can guarantee you that tiredness will go away. Because it's like sickness, like if you're getting a cold, catch a cold.
And you accept the sickness
syndrome
along with it.
You feel that feeling come in. And before you know it, you're really seriously ill. Now, what you have to do is never let the thought materialize in your brain. You are aware you have the sniffles, you are aware you have a sore throat, you're aware that you have a cough, you are aware you have congestion in your lungs. So what do? You treat the sore throat, you treat the cough, you treat this, you treat that. But you don't develop an illness any more than you treat a dented fender out there on a car. When the transmission fluid gets low, you put more transmission fluid in it. The car doesn't collapse because the transmission fluid is low.
Or stag and say, give me 3 days.
The car doesn't say, oh, I'm critically ill. I don't have enough fluid in my transmission. If the car can talk. Now, it's serious, because this is how you want to look at your vehicle. If your vehicle is tired, what can I do to keep my vehicle from being tired? You've had it long enough to know what it takes to keep your vehicle, to handle your vehicle when it gets tired, besides going and lying down and going to bed. You do not need to rest and take a nap like a human does. Only unless it's time to go to bed at a given time. Now, learn this because you need to get it into your computer. You don't want to be weak in this way when you get out of here. At least we hope you don't. Beat your purpose. All right?
Jill gave the example of what thirst was. I just recently had an experience that he pointed it up. It was really funny because I saw somebody get a Coke and they opened the can and they poured it and I was watching and I thought, I'm really thirsty too. I thought, well, I can get a Coke. And I thought, wait a minute, you've got some juice in the refrigerator. Do you want some juice? No, I'm not really thirsty. And I wasn't.
You saw the
and I saw it.
vehicle go.
And then I started laughing. I thought, that's how it works. That's how it works.
That's right. And Teddy?
Well, you mentioned that some look right in the garage and talking loudly, and you don't really talk that loud in the craft. I may be wrong, but it feels like sometimes we do. I wish
we know that.
help
That's
us
the reason we brought it up.
We hope it don't.
Because we know that the volume level has got to get under control. That's the reason we brought it up. And those of you who have volume levels that get out of control without knowing it, examine it and accept it and know that it's something you've got to work on.
Star Rugby, for example, would have made an excellent public speaker in the world, but they didn't have microphones. Because she just doesn't even know that her voice just carries just brilliantly. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
And she's not by herself. She's not by herself.
With the security lesson, I feel like I really need some help to know how far I should go. Like, I don't want to be so concerned with, or do I want to be so concerned with security that I know exactly what the vital signs people are doing out there? I mean, as far as exposure and stuff like that.
Don't get it. Just take the lesson we're giving you and try to apply expanding your awareness in this way. And the only way you're going to know how far is by little trial and error. In other words, if you notice something that happens that seemed a little strange to you in our security, then you write a note. We say, oh, Sayuri, that's a little ridiculous. Or we say, Sayuri, thank you. That's the only way you're going to learn. we can't tell you what the degree is.
When you're out there doing the vital signs, do you leave the garage doors open? Vital signs people?
Well, we have the car running for a short time after we pull it in in order to check that transmission fluid. Then we turn it off and close the door for the remainder of the time.
Well, I don't think it's a good idea doing that in the morning, do you?
Not during dark. Is that what you're saying?
Well, early in the morning, like, how early do you do vital signs? If you have to do it before someone goes to work, and that's kind of early.
At Elmer's we were doing it in the morning. To my knowledge, we're not going to or haven't done it in the morning here. Maybe
Okay.
I don't know. Like we did it last night.
But then I did say to them, and I may be wrong because I'd like to examine it, that I didn't feel like, since the way the garages point, and as long as they stay away from the back side, that they could probably do the vital signs without needing to close the doors, because it's going to attract attention if you go out there and you drive a car in and you do something and then you close the door and then you open the door and you remove the car. And I mean, so much activities going on that it would cause more attention than if I drove the car in, did vital signs, and stayed out of visibility, and then drive the car. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, but what I was trying to figure out, though, was that if you disturb the neighbors on this side over here, by opening and closing the garage door and starting cars early in the
Disturb
morning,
meaning even doing anything
raising the
that
motor,
they hear.
like sometimes when you all were backing out of the carport at Elmridge, the motor sounds was so loud because it seemed like the back and forth, and it would be very disturbing early in the morning if I was rested, if I were your neighbor, rested next to the driveway. So these are the things you want to take into consideration. Am I disturbing any of the neighbors?
Or even disturbing, T doesn't mean, T means would it even attract their attention, right?
Or annoy them?
Yes.
You know, like the people who live next door to where Lynxcraft is now, they seem to be a very noisy bunch. I mean, they don't know how to shut the door quietly. They have to slam it.
The door from their garage to entering their house, we feel the vibration of
And we're not
every time
even connected to the house.
No,
In other words, there's a nice fence. Now, it doesn't bother us. I mean, we're not complaining about. What I'm saying is that but it only happens with one or two people.
that's right, but they're aware of it.
Right.
And if there were many people doing it,
Right. If it happened over and over and over again, it's going to be annoying to them. And therefore, we want to take those things into consideration. Okay?
I'm not sure if it's going to snow tonight, but according to the weather report, there's a possibility. But let's say...
not tonight. Well, there's a possibility, but they expect the snow to come in tomorrow afternoon.
I see.
According to the latest report. That's the reason we wanted to be sure. T and I had our days mixed up, and we thought tomorrow was Wednesday. We were in good shape today, weren't we? So we thought, well, Plywood better go a day early. So we called and told Plywood he better go tomorrow. And they said, okay.
They were real smart. Well, we usually
Go on Thursday.
I know, but we want
to go tomorrow. But we feel like Plywood gets off at their normal time and all that you'll get back hopefully before the moisture gets to give us a problem.
Well, I get what I was going to say. It's appropriate. Let's say in the morning that there is a couple inches of snow on the ground, and it's the first run gets out of the way at 6 o'clock now. We have a little incline here, and those little stone get pretty slick. And my concern would be, well, the car may not be able to. I know, like the ice storm we had, a month ago. I don't know if we'd be able to even get up that little incline, but I'd be happy to get out at before 6 and shovel off the snow. Now, would that be appropriate?
Absolutely. Just like the neighbor would, even if there was only one car going out there. That's not creating anything unusual.
We don't want anybody going to work if the roads are so bad that you're going to be in an accident,
Yeah, like if you can't get out of here, then I think we would,
because they're not going to...
we want to talk to you before we decide on going to task. If you're having trouble getting out here, then there's no sense in letting some employer tell you, but I'm expecting you here in 15 minutes. You know, but shoveling snow, the neighbor would shovel snow if he needed to get out. Do you see what I'm saying?
I'm in that early in the morning. I mean, that's okay, even if it's like 5:45 or something like that.
Well, my first thought was that I would try to get the car parked, because it was going to have to leave that early. If I expected it to snow tonight, I'd get the parked there, that hopefully they could get out without much to do than that's inclined from back here. If they're going to go in the dark, it's still dark, and so forth. But I would certainly examine the weather conditions and the street conditions pretty carefully to see whether or not it was worth my getting out there and going through all that, turning around 2 blocks later and find out I can't get anywhere. You see what we're saying?
Because the hoodies are so strong or what, the question popped in my head, do we still have snow shovels?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. I think we better call it.
Okay.